Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mack. Tonight we got to see the debut of these absolutely beautiful Playhouse inspired jerseys, right? As well as the in-season tournament courts at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Oh, and there was a basketball game played tonight, right? The Cleveland Cavaliers took on the Detroit Pistons in a game in which the Pistons just wouldn't go away up until the very end, right? Cavs ended up walking away with a 108 to 100 victory over those pesky Pistons. And much like the rest of this season, man, they were without some core pieces, right? No Isaac Okoro, no Ty Jerome, and joining them was Donovan Mitchell, right? And heading into tonight's matchup, I was looking for a few things in particular for the Cavs as a unit to execute on. Rebounding obviously was number one. There's a never ending battle of the boards, right, with this team, which they have admittedly, honestly, been handling very well lately. Nevertheless, this team should always be making this a point of emphasis, to be honest with you. And oh my God, were they atrocious on the glass tonight, especially in the first half. They ended up losing the rebounding battle 51 to 39 on the night. It was rough, but luckily it didn't hurt the Cavs too often, just because Detroit was unable to knock down as many shots to make them pay, right? They did not knock down a high number of those second chance opportunities, and the Cavs, on the other hand, knocked down theirs at a rather high clip. Some of the boards were opportunistic, but others were obviously the result of poor positioning and a lack of effort, honestly. Astoundingly, Detroit managed to out rebound Cleveland 18 to 7. Yes, you heard that right. 18 to 7 on the offensive glass. I, I just cannot understand why, for the life of me, this continues to be such a common occurrence. There were a ton of second chance opportunities for Detroit. Obviously, they didn't capitalize on it, all of them, but you just don't want to see that. Way too many for my liking. And honestly, look, like, dude, when you have Jared Allen, when you have Evan Mobley, when you have those two guys in your starting lineup, you expect more. You honestly don't. At least I do. I don't care how undersized that we consider them. Count them, 3 different players for Detroit had 10 or more rebounds. That cannot and should not be the case. I don't give a damn. Like I said, I do not give a damn how undersized this Cleveland team is. And I know, a lot of these teams that Cleveland has faced off against recently do have sort of a size advantage at the other positions. Maybe not necessarily in the front court at the 4 and the 5 spot, but when you start looking at some of these guys, your SGAs, your Cade Cunninghams of the world, your Tyrese Halliburtons, there are some tough size disadvantages here, obviously in the backcourt, but still, 3 different players ending up in double digits for Detroit on the boards. You don't want to see that happen. The Cavs, I don't know what it is, but they got to shore that up. Outside of rebounding, I was really interested to see what the perimeter defense would look like tonight, considering that they've struggled at various points to begin this pretty young season to contain the 3 ball, right? They have struggled defending the 3 ball at times. That said, Detroit came into the game ranked 27th in the NBA in terms of 3-point attempts per game and 25th in 3-point makes. But even with that being the case, when they do elect to shoot that type of shot, they're still somewhat dangerous, right? They currently rank 14th in 3-point percentage. So defending the 3-point shot was going to prove absolutely necessary to stop the Pistons from going on runs or climbing back from deficits. And that's exactly what happened in the third quarter, right? They got on sort of a run. Cleveland was able to match it with one of their own. But Detroit drew within 4 with little under 4 minutes left in the third. By knocking down some timely triples and making the most of some defensive lapses on Cleveland's part. And they would hang around for the rest of the game. Like I said, they wouldn't go away. And if it's one thing that we know about this Detroit team, they're going to play hard, right? No matter who their opponent is, they're going to play hard. And I respect the hell out of them for that, to be honest with you. Honestly, I think they have some great young pieces themselves with Cade Cunningham, Azar Thompson, who had a pretty great game tonight himself, despite getting jammed on by Max Strus, who we'll talk about a little later, and Beef Stew on the roster, right? They have some interesting pieces there. And Monty Williams has definitely has these dudes playing hard, right? He has them playing as a unit. And I have nothing but respect for that because they look like they have a pretty solid future in front of them. And then finally, the final thing that I was really looking for was the turnovers, right? Here's the thing. I knew heading into tonight with the news that Donovan Mitchell would be joining the likes of Isaac and Ty, that not turning the ball over at a high rate would be a key factor in this game. It was going to be of key importance considering that Mitchell, and I'm not joking when I say this, Mitchell is literally providing damn near a fourth of the offensive production himself. I'm not kidding when I say that. He's averaging over 29.2 points per game on the season, and the Cavs as a whole are averaging 110.5 points per game. So he's literally out there giving Cleveland basically 25% of its offensive production. So missing him, that's a pretty big loss. It's not necessarily, and don't take this as a slight, right? It's not necessarily like losing Isaac Okoro, who is a terrific defender and has looked much better offensively with the increased pace, right? And a little bit more confidence. It's a different thing when you're missing that, but it takes it to an entirely different level when you miss the likes of Donovan Mitchell, who is such a needed source of production in that Cavs lineup. So I was very curious to see how they would fare in regards to turnovers, considering that Darius Garland, Max Strus, Craig Porter Jr., who we'll talk about a little bit later, all would have increased playmaking duties, right? So how did they fare? Well, tonight I actually thought they did pretty well despite some individual turnovers. Turned the ball over just 12 times to Detroit's 17, which you absolutely like to see. And at this point, we probably should go ahead and discuss Darius Garland, who many people, I don't know if you guys have seen this as much as I have, because it's on my timeline a little bit more consistently than I would like to admit. But a lot of people seem to have turned on Darius Garland, like just 7 games. I think tonight was just his 7th appearance. And people are seemingly already ready to ship him out of town because of the slow start that he has. I've seen just some disgusting things being said about him. And again, some of it is warranted. DG has started the season turning the ball over at an alarming rate. The 3-point percentage was down in the dumps. But as of late, he's actually played really, really well. And tonight I thought he had a pretty good game, all things considered. He did turn the ball over 5 times. He turned the ball over 5 times, but at the same time, he scored 28, dished out 3 assists, grabbed 3 boards. And to me, for Darius, it's all about whether or not he actually outweighs the turnovers, right? If you're able to give more production than you give away, right? If you turn the ball over 5 times, but at the same time, you're scoring damn near 30 points like you did tonight, you can live with the turnovers, especially if Donovan Mitchell's not out there and you are constantly being counted on to run the offense. DG did that tonight. The assist numbers may not be where you like them to be, just 3 tonight, but at the same time, guy was counted on to be the primary source of offensive production. And I see some of the things being said down here. Pranav Sivaram, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. DG's turnovers are a little concerning at this point. Not turning on him, just uncharacteristic. So I'll say this. Again, some of the criticism is warranted. Like I said, some of the turnovers have been pretty eye-popping in regards to how lackadaisical some of the passes that he's made have been. Some of them are definitely things that can be fixed, right? As the primary ball handler, there's an inherent amount of turnovers that you're going to have. It's going to happen. But as you said down there, Pranav, not turning on him, it's just uncharacteristic. But like I said, it's not all criticism. That's valid. That's valid. There are some abysmal things that I've seen people say about Darius, though. He ain't that guy. He doesn't help this team. Let's trade him. Yada, yada, yada. I continue to see some bullshit, frankly. K-Dude says his shooting for me wasn't a issue. It looks like a lot of his turnovers are lazy and low effort passes. I agree with that. Again, that is valid criticism. These are things that are, you can clean up very, very easily fixed if he focuses a little bit more. There's a little bit more decisive in his passes. I feel like the turnovers will cut down. And tonight, while he did turn the ball over 5 times, I can let that go considering that he was able to outdo that, right? From an offensive end. Tune in Sports One says down here, DG not going nowhere. He here to stay. Yeah, I get the feeling Darius Garland loves Cleveland, right? He wants to be here. He's got the massive contract. But for some reason, some fans are just so ready to flip on him through such a small sample size. I just don't understand it. I never have. And this is not just something that's specific to Cleveland, as a fan base. All fan bases do this, right? Everybody does this once a guy goes through a rough patch or something like that, especially at the start of a year. And I know emotions are kind of running high considering how the Cavs have started this season from an injury perspective. And Dr. Claw down here says, the team has execution issues. Things were getting scary when the Cavs let threes go off the break again. Rebounding wasn't great. Yeah, Dr. Claw, I don't know if you just joined, but definitely pointed that out earlier. Cavs lost the rebounding battle 51-39 and an even worse 18-7 on the offensive glass. Way too many offensive rebounds, way too many second chance opportunities. Fortunately for Cleveland, Detroit, again, they didn't capitalize on enough of those to make it count, right? They shot 43% from the field and 26% from 3-point distance. So didn't necessarily burn the Cavs too much, but you can't get away with this type of lack of production on the glass against some of the better teams. You can get away with it against a lowly Detroit Pistons team, but you can't necessarily have, as Pranav down here says, essentially 2 7-footers, but getting out rebounded so often. Yeah, you cannot have that. I wholeheartedly agree. That is valid criticism. DG still trying for that rim pressure, but he ends up with nowhere to go with the ball. Yeah, that ends up happening a lot. In previous seasons, what we would end up seeing is a dump off, right? So one of the bigs in in Jared Allen, rather, or Evan Mobley, but that just hasn't been the case at the beginning of the season for those three. We saw Karras do it a lot. He continues to do that. Donovan Mitchell has been able to do a little bit more often, but Darius Garland used to be so adept at that. And I say that lightly just because I feel like it's still in his game. Just got to give him some more time. I still feel like the hammy is still kind of bothering him because I don't really feel like the lateral movement is where it was last season. So still trying to be patient with him, but to see him put up 28 points tonight, lead the Cavs in scoring, absolutely phenomenal. Darius Garland definitely had a pretty solid game. It wasn't anything to write home about, but he was efficient, right? 10 of 19 from the floor, 2 of 5 from 3-point distance, and 6 of 8 from the free throw line. And, that's all you can ask at this point in time, especially when you don't have Donovan Mitchell out there. But obviously, Darius Garland was not the only guy out there playing tonight, right? We got to talk about Max Strus, 18 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 7 of 15 from the field, and including 4 of 8 from 3-point distance and 4 steals on the night. We keep talking about Karis LeVert's two-way play. Let's talk about Max Strus looking a lot better, on the defensive end. A lot more than I thought we were bargaining for here when we acquired him, right? If it's not apparent to you the impact that Max Strus has on the floor spacing, really just the motion of this offense, right? Especially in the half court. Some of the setups that he's able to generate, very, very important and vital, especially when this team becomes at full strength again, right? The DHOs, some of the connections that he's made from a chemistry standpoint with Evan Mobley in particular, and somewhat Jared Allen, a very, very cool development to see. No doubt, thanks to his play alongside Bam Adebayo, as I continue to say, and playing within that Miami Heat offense, he's brought all that to the table and more, for Cleveland. As K-Dude says down here, I did not know Strus had all of this in his game. Not gonna lie, $16 million for this is a bargain. You are absolutely 100% motherfucking correct, because some of these contracts that's been handed out, even if you feel that Strus was not worth that amount of money that he received. You got to, at this point, you just have to admit to yourself that Strus, his deal is going to look like an absolute steal when lined up against the backdrop of some of these contracts that were given out this past offseason. He's really averaging career highs across the board. The shooting percentages are starting to go up. The three ball is starting to drop, as you see tonight. We know one thing about Strus, right? Especially coming into the season, was that very, very solid movement shooter, and he can be streaky at times. Finished last season at 35% from 3-point distance. But this year, man, although the three ball has been hit and miss to begin the season, it was hit tonight, 4 of 8 from distance. And although that's the case, and he can be up and down in terms of his shooting, he's brought so much else to the table that it really hasn't bothered me, right? The low shooting percentages at times, it don't bother me as much as long as the ball is constantly moving. He's generating gravity and he's pulling guys out into outside the painted area, and defenses legitimately have to pay attention to him out there. That's an element that Cleveland just didn't have last year while starting LeVert and Okoro. Whoever else was out there, whether it be Lamar Stevens or Jetty Osman at points. They just didn't have that. And now they do with Strus at that small forward position. And to be able to get all of that production from him offensively whilst getting an underrated defense, as Tom K says down here, and Strus defense is solid enough too. Yeah. It's not all defense, right? It's not all defense level, but it's passable. And that's what you want, right? That was the initial trade-off for this team, if I'm not mistaken, heading into this year, slotting Strus into that starting lineup. You knew that you were going to be taking somewhat of a hit to your perimeter defense by subbing him in for LeVert, who had a very, very good season from a defensive standpoint last year, and Isaac Okoro, right? You knew you were going to be losing something on the defensive end, but for Strus to be a passable defender at the small forward position, a position at which he is considered undersized, that listed at 6'5", if I'm not mistaken, it's been solid. Nothing to write home about, right? There are going to be these games, as K-Dude says down here, 4 steals and 1 block is crazy. He's already had a handful of these types of games this season, and he's going to, there is no doubt about it, he is going to average career highs across the board. And he has definitely proven that he is far more than just a shooter. Coming from Miami, the big trope, right? We all know it. We all know it. The big trope is system guy. Guys from Miami, once they leave Miami, don't succeed, right? We've seen far too many examples of that being the case. It's not. It's not with Strus. We got lucky. Yes, it's a pretty small sample size, but the Cavs, man, they got a solid one. They got a really, really good one in Mack Strus. And as Tune In says down here, Strus over Jetty. I said it. No shade, though. It's okay, man. No shade needed. That's okay. That is a perfectly fine statement to say. Don't feel bad about it. It doesn't have to be shade. Jetty, fine role player in his own right. Looks pretty good for the Spurs this season. But you can't fathom prior to this season that Mack Strus was going to be giving us this type of production. Jetty never could. And he just, honestly, this is not necessarily something that I could have ever seen Jetty doing. So no shade there. And also says it's the effort too. He brings everything he has all the time. Yes. In addition to the leadership, right? The effort is always there, but the accountability, the leadership that he's already shown, phenomenal. Cavs absolutely needed it there. Darius, Max, those guys were great tonight. But man, I cannot go any further until I just bring up one name, right? And that is Craig Porter Jr. Oh my fucking God. This kid, man. And I don't even know if I feel right saying kid for him because he's an older rookie, right? There's only about 7 years, I think, separating me and Craig Porter Jr. So you know what? This man, Craig Porter Jr., this rookie, this undrafted free agent that Cleveland signed, and Kobe has been pretty damn good at finding some guys out there that can provide you some production. Has he hit on every single pick? No. But these undrafted guys, man, you're talking about getting guys who come into the lineup and initially make some type of impact, right? You got Lamar Stevens came in and did it. Dean Wade did it. Craig Porter Jr. looks to be doing it now. Amani Bates, there's a lot to be excited about in this young man. The fact that he played 16 minutes. This man played 16 minutes and gave the Cavs 12 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. He was 5 and 9 from the field and stole the ball. And excellent on both ends of the court, right? How can you deny at this point? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just overreacting because it is Detroit, right? We had the same conversation, about Amani Bates after he exploded, in the G League, in his G League debut. And we had the conversation the other day after Cleveland ended up beating Portland, sans Darius Garland about, hey, let's not overreact to some of these things that we're seeing because it's just the 1-game sample size against a pretty lowly team. But I have to admit, man, Craig Porter Jr. at this point, I am completely sold on him as a rotation piece. I cannot say that enough. Ty Jerome could end up being a victim of injury, right? He could seriously end up being a victim of just not being available. Craig Porter Jr. has picked up the baton and he has hit the ground running. Phenomenal. He was great in summer league. He gave you some solid production in the preseason, and now in every performance that he's had to begin this season, he's been phenomenal. He's made the most of his time out there. And here's the dilemma. Like I got to call a spade here. The dilemma is the fact that he plays guard, right? Point guard at that. And he's considered undersized at, I believe, just 6'2". Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro when he turns to full strength, Max Strus because he'll play some minutes at the 2 guard. All of those guys are ahead of him. That's without mentioning Ty Jerome or Ricky Rubio, who is a distant afterthought at this moment dealing with the mental health, right? All of those guys, technically, maybe with the exception of Rubio, right? All of those guys are technically ahead of him on the depth chart. And Ty is probably starting to look like the man on the outside looking in at this point with the way that Craig has played. But that's the dilemma that Craig Porter Jr. finds himself in right now. It's one thing to perform very well and, in spot appearances when the team is not at full strength. But I got to say, man, every opportunity that he's had, he's been impactful. So if he continues to make this a consistent thing, one of those guys might find themselves on the bench. It's not going to be Darius. It's most certainly not going to be Donovan, obviously. It's not going to be Karis. The guys that could potentially eventually end up being on, bench type of territory on the bubble, kind of thing are going to no doubt be Isaac Okoro and Ty Jerome. And probably more so Ty Jerome, right? Isaac Okoro is bigger. He's a dependable defender, if not the Cavs' best point of attack defenders out there. But obviously with Craig Porter Jr. being able to do things, a little bit more consistently on the offensive end, time will tell. I am just so damn impressed with this man's ability to impact the game in such small spurts. And at this point, right, the Cavs have an open roster spot. They have Craig on that 2-way deal. Do they consider converting him? Because if I'm not mistaken, I don't necessarily think we've seen him in the G League yet. I don't think he's played a minute yet. I could be mistaken on that. Feel free to correct me if I'm not. If I am, rather, in the comments, but I don't think we've actually seen him play a minute for the Charge just yet, like we have with Amani and Isaiah. I'm just at the point now where I'm just like, man, he's just from a positional standpoint, he's just got so many hurdles to climb. It's not his play. It's not the fact that he sucks or anything like that, because he looked damn impactful every single minute that he's out there. It's the simple fact of the position that he plays and the fact that there are guys out there that are still outperforming him and have done so at a higher level, right? When you're talking about Darius, when you're talking about Donovan, when you're talking about Karis, Isaac, And then, Strus again, who's going to see his fair share of minutes at the 2 guard, not just small forward. Just tough, man. Tough. How do you see him go out there and give you this level of production and just um not getting a consistent role? And I know a lot of people, just like I've already seen tonight with some of the overreactions, people are going to want to say, "What the fuck is JB doing? JB absolutely has to play this man." I was going to say kid. I'm not. I'll fight it. He absolutely has to play him, when honestly, it's tough. It's going to be damn tough, especially as the rotation kind of whittles down to your more consistent 8 to 9 man as the postseason approaches, right? If JB elects to go 10 or 11 deep, there is no question that Craig Porter Jr. should see nightly action. But as the rotation kind of whittles itself down to those 8 or 9, come the playoffs, Craig is not likely to see the court, outside of maybe your change of pace kind of option. And that sucks. But again, he's a two-way. There's unless converted, he won't play in the playoffs anyways, right? And then it all just boils down to, hey, do the Cavs feel more comfortable converting Craig Porter Jr. or Amani Bates or even Isaiah Mobley, right? At this point, I'd say as of right now, of those three, Craig Porter Jr. is the most NBA ready of the three, just because his game, it has been able to evolve and cook a little bit more, at the collegiate level than either Amani or Isaiah, right? We've seen how much success that Isaiah has had within the G League already, dating back to last season. But I got to be honest, man, Craig looks like the most pro ready of the 3 2-ways, and I have no qualms with saying that. His game looks like it is going to translate well. The only thing that we still have yet to see from this young man is the perimeter shot. That's the only thing holding his game back right now. That's the only thing. And if he could do that, JB would probably elect to play him every single time he could, right? Yeah, it would be a no-brainer option off that Cavalier bench if he could knock down the three-point shot. But he's not taking them, right? Most of his game at this point in time, and before I say this, I'll add that it's been efficient, right? But his game at this point consists of driving, operating the pick and roll, which he's done very well, and taking a couple of turnaround jumpers, right? A couple of fadeaways, which have worked. He's attacking down low, something that people have been clamoring for years for Darius Garland to do. But yeah, as Tune In Sports down here, like a Rondo type player right now. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one of his idols, one of the guys that he kind of modeled his game after, was Rondo, if I'm not mistaken. I think I've heard him say that a time or two. But yeah, very Rondo-like, sees the floor very well, dished out 5 assists tonight, and he has obviously he has the vision. He hustles, he plays hard on the defensive end, and he can score. At least on the inside, and he can operate within the confines of the pick and roll, which is very good, especially considering that's kind of how the Cavs operate, right? They run so many pick and roll sets. Just can't say enough good things about Craig Porter Jr. Back to Strus for 1 second, because I know that I neglected one aspect of tonight that lit the whole arena up, right? Set the whole damn court on fire when Mack Strus rose up for a jam, a poster dunk on rookie Asar Thompson. His welcome to the NBA moment. My God, Strus is making a habit out of doing that, right? Maybe not necessarily poster dunks, but some loud jams out there. Certainly didn't see that in his game come from Miami. He had a couple of nice dunks last season, but I mean, he's done this now, if I'm not mistaken, in back-to-back games for Cleveland, which has just been phenomenal. Yeah, the poster jam number 2 now. My God, Strus, man. He's just been a revelation for this Cavaliers team. And that dunk, that was probably the coolest thing we saw all night. And that includes the play from Craig Porter Jr., who was excellent tonight. But from an individual possession standpoint, that was just as good as it gets. The guy just never ceases to amaze me with what he's able to bring to the table. Tuna says, I didn't know JB knew what a challenge was. Glad he finally used one, even though it still wasn't in our favor. Yeah, that's a constant complaint with JB is that he either waits a little too long to use a possession or he just does it outright. Yeah, I'm often frustrated about that too. This coming from a very supportive fan of JB Bickerstaff. But yeah, that is definitely a complaint. It's up there and it's valid criticism, much like what was said about Darius Garland earlier and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley in regards to rebounding. These are things that JB as a coach has to work on because, as we all know, just like players, coaches have things that they need to improve on too. That remains true for JB Biggerstaff, who is an imperfect coach at this point in time. I will say this. The Cavs, prior to tonight, they had been on this very wishy-washy kind of trend of win-loss, 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 and win. Tonight, they broke that curse, right? Now it's win-loss, win-loss, win-win. So that makes me feel very, very good, even if it's just a small victory, right? Cavs are now at 500, heading to, I believe, Denver. I think Denver's next up at home. But man, very, very good win tonight. And that's without even mentioning some of these other things on here, like Evan Mobley's played tonight, who, my God, if tonight didn't impress you with Evan Mobley, who had 10 points or 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists, to go along with a steal on 8 of 12, a very efficient 8 of 12, might I add. If tonight did not impress you from just a very good all around game from Mobley, I don't know what else to say, right? I don't know what people are expecting of Mobley. On a night where Donovan Mitchell is not out there, I understand the sentiment. Like, Mobley, go out there and get us 20 and 10. It's damn close, right? The passing is definitely there. As K Dude says down here, he finally started jumping on his mid range. Yeah, I saw that. I'm glad I was the only person to see that. I've really been pining for him to use his floater a little bit more, just because I feel like that's such an underrated part of his game. If he would just lean into it a little bit more. But I just I don't know what people are expecting from Mobley when he's giving you very, very solid production. He is, as I continue to say, the kid is a walking double-double. Even if you feel like he's added nothing to his game from an offensive bag standpoint, he's a walking double-double, and he can stumble his way to them at this point. Don't know what else I can say about it, man. Obviously, the rebounding as a team was atrocious, but Mobley did lead the way with 10 boards on the night. He was out there battling with Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart for the Pistons. But man, just a pretty good all-around game from him, and he continues to facilitate at a rather high level for his position. K-Dude says, it seems like he isn't that aggressive sometimes and wants to make the right play instead of scoring himself. So here's the thing. Like, what I've often said about Mobley is that he can be indecisive after receiving the ball, right? Especially when he's down in the low post or if he's making his way to the basket. Instead of being aggressive, like you said down there, what he'll elect to do is try to put guys in a position. He'll try and move the ball when he really should just take the shot, right? Or try and elect to drive inside. That is a complaint. It's valid criticism, something that we want to see him work on as he gets, deeper into his NBA career. But tonight, I didn't necessarily feel like that was an issue. I feel like he actually did attack at certain points. And I feel like when he saw mismatches or advantages that favored him, he took advantage of them, which is what you wanted to see, right? When you look at the Cavaliers bench here, just to kind of shift gears, a couple of things that stick out to me. One, obviously, Karis LeVert played 33 minutes tonight, just had 10 points on a pretty bad 4-14 from the field. And here's the thing, right? We know with Karis, the shot will come and go, and that he is prone to general inconsistency from a scoring aspect. But on a night when you're 4-14 and you still finish plus 11, that's a small victory, right? He didn't necessarily hit down nearly as many shots as you would have wanted him to, but he gave you solid scoring production off the bench. And then you look at George Niang, right? Who people have just been shitting on, right? Max Strus has exploded out of the gate, but George Niang has kind of been the addition where you're just like, man, when is the shot going to start to fall? Or is it really worth it to play him as much as he's been playing? Because Niang played 27 minutes tonight. Tonight was a good game. Tonight was a very good game for Niang off that bench. 9.7 boards. Very impressed by the rebounds, by the way. Niang is averaging a career high in rebounds this season. Just took 4 shot attempts tonight, 3 of 4 from the field, 1 of 1. That's pretty astounding to me. Niang only took 1 3-point attempt. And then 2 free throws. And one thing that you guys have probably continuously heard me say about Niang is I absolutely hate when he drives the basketball. He actually made 1 or 2 tonight, right? When he drove in. But just the general spacing that he provides. And as K Dude says down here, same with Strus, Levert, and Strus do way too much great things for this team to worry about bad shooting nights. Yeah. So for me, I haven't been too hard on Niang just because I feel like the overall what you're having him out there for is for 2 simple things, right? His gravity or his ability to knock down the 3-point shot, and the defenses need to respect that. And 2, because he can actually give you minutes at the power forward position. Those are the 2 reasons primarily why Niang is out there for as long as he is. His ability to man the 4 and his ability to knock down the 3 ball. Whatever else you're getting from him, just gravy on top, right? The rebounding, that's great. He's not Kevin Love out there rebounding the basketball, but he's done a very solid job, more than I expected from him. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I didn't necessarily think he would be a all defense level type of defender, and he hasn't been, right? But he has been solid enough in one-on-one scenarios that he's often makes up for whatever liabilities that he gives up on that end, right? And tonight was a perfect example of that. He did his job off that bench. So hopefully we see more nights like these as time goes on, but that remains to be seen. And then last but certainly uh, not least is the fact that JB elected to go just 8 deep tonight, with Craig Porter Jr. being that 8th man. Just 16 minutes on the night, and we've already talked about the level of production that he's provided. But I was a little surprised that JB only operated with 8 men primarily tonight, when you still had Tristan Thompson off the bench, which to me, like, if you're struggling from a rebounding standpoint, why not give Thompson a few more minutes? But we won, so I'm not going to complain too much. Obviously, Damian Jones is basically out of the rotation at this point and has been basically since the start of the year. And then Amani Bates, the other rookie, the 2-way guy. So if your one complaint tonight off that Cavalier bench is that we didn't get to see enough of guys like Amani Bates or Tristan Thompson or something like that, and this is without even mentioning Sam Merrill, mind you. I hear you, but at the same time, it's hard to complain too much when you're winning, right? And one of the things that I kind of applaud JB for, as a lot of people don't want to give him his praise, is the fact that he has allowed. We know how much Karis LeVert's role fluctuated last season, right? We know how many different positions he played for them. We know how versatile he can be, but sometimes it came at his own detriment. And so having him stick to one primary job, right, allowing him to get comfortable where he's at off that Cavalier bench and not ruining his chances at winning 6th man of the year, right? That it's been good for him. And so I applaud JB for kind of sticking to his guns with that. As Dr. Claus 77 says down here, Wade must have only had a few minutes. Love, he got the 3 ball off. Great ball movement. Yeah, Wade only played 22 minutes tonight, coming off a game in which I think he played 32 minutes against Portland. Just 3 points tonight on that 1 field goal attempt. And here's the thing with Dean Wade. I think a lot of people don't understand this or just don't care to. Dean is not out there to score a ton of points, right? Dr. Claw, I know you know that. We've talked about this ad nauseum in some of the chats that we're in, right? But the average viewer just doesn't seem to understand that Dean Wade's job is not necessarily to score a ton of points. He's out there to defend. He's out there to rebound and basically give you minutes at the 4 and 5 spots and occasionally the 3, right? Um, that's his job. He'll probably never get more than 3 to 5 shot attempts a game, and that's in a game, mind you, when we're missing some pieces. When the team is at full strength, the ball might only swing his way a handful of times, right? That's just the life of a role player. In today's NBA, you just never know when you're going to be called upon. And for Wade, when he's out there, when he's healthy, and most importantly, when he's confident, he'll give you solid production. You don't want to overplay him. I think 22 minutes is fine. Uh, but when you view that against the backdrop of what the other starters played, right? Like Max Strus, who again, I said this last pod, Max is leading the Cavs in minutes this season. He played 39 tonight. Evan got 35. Darius coming back from injury, 34. And then Jared Allen, still appearing to be somewhat on a minutes restriction. I could be mistaken on that. Played 32. And then you look at the Cavaliers bench, right? LeVert got 33. He is basically, as I continue to say, he is your sixth starter. So when you view Wade's minutes against that, it doesn't look great. It doesn't look like JB had a lot of confidence in him, but that just wasn't the case. It's just the ebbs and flows of being a role player. And JB recognizing what guys' strengths and weaknesses are in that starting unit and trying to, lean into the guys that he trusts, right? Tonight, Niang was playing well, so you kept Niang out there for a little longer. Yeah, LeVert is still a shot creator, and you don't have Donovan Mitchell out there, so yes, you're going to lean on Karis LeVert. And then Craig Porter Jr., Craig's playing so damn well, you put him in lineups out there with Darius Garland, right? You have him out there with Karis LeVert. It looks good. It looks good. So props to JB for making that adjustment tonight, giving Craig the chance. Sports down here says the Dean Wade hate will continue. Yeah, unfortunately, there's just not enough things that I can say to change people's minds on Dean. It's an uphill battle. And honestly, it's probably a losing battle at this point, not because of Wade's play, but just because the average viewer thinks that scoring is everything. I really can't say anything else to the contrary. That's just what it often seems like. But overall on the night, man, it was very, very solid. I'm very, very impressed with just about every aspect of this team. Say what you will, but the Cavaliers have managed to navigate some of these injuries or some of this early season injury luck pretty well, right? Tonight's win, as of right now, with some games still pending, that puts Cleveland at ninth in the East at 6-6. And, we knew this Eastern Conference, man, it is not your father's Eastern Conference. This is different. This is a conference that features teams that will go out there and give you a rough matchup every single time you're out there. Even Detroit now sits at 2-11. They're going to play you hard. We saw what some of these other teams have been able to do to Cleveland to begin the year. But this is a game the Cavs were expected to win, and damn it, they went out there and did that. And it feels good because they've been able to win back-to-back games finally. I love it. It gives me confidence heading into this matchup with Denver looming in the distance, and it remains to be seen. I think Denver might still be without Jamal Murray, which might help, right? But it remains to be seen what the injury report is going to look like on Cleveland's end. Will Isaac Okoro still be out? Will Donovan Mitchell rather still be out? Will Ty Jerome eventually play? These are all questions that will be answered when tip-off begins against Denver. As I always tell you guys, if you like to reach out to me, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you'd like to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot, a separate review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you an invite. That said, go Cavs. Have a good weekend.